there is contact. So with the contact, feeling arises. The pleasure and joy that arise in dependence on feeling, this is the gratification in feeling. That feeling is impermanent, suffering, and subject to change. This is the danger in feeling. The removal and abandonment of desire and lust for feeling, this is the escape from feeling. Whatever ascetics and Brahmins, having thus directly known feeling, its origin, cessation, and the way leading to its cessation, having thus directly known the gratification, danger, and escape, in the case of feeling, are practicing for the purpose of revulsion towards feeling, for its fading away and cessation, they are practicing well. Those who are practicing well have gained a foothold in this Dhamma Vinaya. So similarly, the Buddha says, if a person understands these things, the aggregate, its origin, its cessation, and the way leading to cessation, and understands the gratification, danger, and escape, then we are practicing for the purpose of revulsion, letting go. Whatever ascetics and Brahmins, having thus directly known feeling, etc., those are consummate ones. So those who are totally let go feeling, then they become liberated. And what monks is perception? There are these 6 classes of perception: perception of forms, perception of sounds, perception of smells, perception of taste, perception of touch, perception of thoughts. This is called perception. With the arising of contact, there is the arising of perception. With the cessation of contact, there is the cessation of perception. This Noble Eightfold Path is the way leading to the cessation of perception. Let's stop here for a moment. So just now we said, with contact, feeling arises. After feeling, you have perception. That means you perceive, like for example, you see something, you perceive that it's yellow or blue or white, whatever. The pleasure and joy that arise in dependence on perception, that is the gratification in perception. That perception is impermanent, suffering, and subject to change. This is the danger in perception. The removal and abandonment of desire and lust for perception, that is the escape from perception. Similarly, whatever ascetics and Brahmins understand this and they let go, they are consummate ones. And what monks are volitions? There are 6 classes of volition. Volition regarding forms, sounds, smells, taste, touch, and thoughts. This is called volition. With the arising of contact, there is a rising of volition. With the ceasing of contact, there is a ceasing of volition. The Noble Eightfold Path is the way leading to the cessation of volition. The pleasure and joy that arise in dependence on volition, this is the gratification in volition. That volition is impermanent, suffering, and subject to change. This is the danger in volition. The removal and abandonment of desire and lust for volition, that is the escape from volition. And what is consciousness? There are these 6 classes of consciousness: eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, body consciousness, mind consciousness. This is called consciousness. The arising of mentality and materiality, nama rupa, there is the arising of consciousness. With the cessation of nama rupa, there is the cessation of consciousness. This Noble Eightfold Path is the way leading to the cessation of consciousness. Stop here for a moment. Consciousness is said to arise because of nama rupa, because as I mentioned before, consciousness and nama rupa. Consciousness, the Pali is vijnana. Nama rupa, the translation is mentality, materiality, and you can consider that to be phenomena. What consciousness is conscious of. When consciousness arises, it must be conscious of something. That something is nama rupa. So in English we call that phenomena. And these two, consciousness and mentality, materiality, they always rise together and cease together. They cannot exist one by itself. They must always exist together and cease together. They are a pair, Siamese twins joined to each other. The pleasure and joy that arise in dependence on consciousness, that is the gratification in consciousness. That consciousness is impermanent, suffering and subject to change. This is the danger in consciousness. The removal and abandonment of desire and lust for consciousness, that is the escape. Whatever ascetics and Brahmins, having thus directly known consciousness, its origin, cessation, way leading to its cessation, having thus directly known the gratification, danger and escape in the case of consciousness, are practicing for the purpose of revulsion towards consciousness, for its fading away and cessation. They are practicing well. Those who are practicing well have gained a foothold in this Dhammavinaya. Whatever ascetics and Brahmins, having thus directly known consciousness, its origin, cessation, and the way leading to its cessation, having thus directly known gratification, danger and escape in the case of consciousness, through revulsion towards consciousness, through its fading away and cessation, are liberated by non-clinging. They are well liberated. Those who are well liberated are consummate ones. As to those consummate ones, there is no ground for describing them. This in such a way that a monk is skilled in 7 cases. And how monks is a monk a triple investigator? Here monks, a monk investigates by way of the elements, by way of the sense basis, and by way of dependent origination. It is in such a way that a monk is a triple investigator. Monks, a monk who is skilled in these 7 cases and a triple investigator is called, in this Dhammavinaya, a consummate one who has fully lived the holy life, the highest kind of person. So here finally the Buddha says we should investigate by 3 ways. One is by way of the elements. The elements are the dhatus. We went through the Samyutta called the Dhatu Samyutta, I think it was chapter 14. And then the sense basis, we haven't come, that is chapter 35, Salayatana Samyutta. And then the third one is dependent origination. That one we went through already, chapter 12, Nidana Samyutta. So, although it does not mention, since he has already gone through just now, another way of investigating is the 5 aggregates. In fact, the 5 aggregates are the most important. And if we investigate the 5 aggregates, then we can become an Arya. So that's the end of the sutta. So here the Buddha is saying the 5 aggregates, we have to understand the aggregate itself, how it arises, how it ceases, and the way leading to its cessation. And also you have to understand the gratification, the satisfaction that comes from that aggregate, the danger in that aggregate, the escape from that aggregate. So these are the 7 cases. The next sutta is 22.58 at Savatthi. The Buddha said, monks, the Tathagata, Arahant, Sammasambuddha, liberated by non-clinging through revulsion towards body, through its fading away and cessation, is called a perfectly enlightened one. A monk liberated by wisdom, liberated by non-clinging through revulsion towards body, through its fading away and cessation, is called one liberated by wisdom. The Tathagata Arahant, perfectly enlightened one, or Sammasambuddha, liberated by non-clinging through revulsion towards feeling, perception, volition, consciousness, through the fading away and cessation, is called a Sammasambuddha. A monk liberated by wisdom, liberated by non-clinging to revulsion towards feeling, perception, volition, consciousness, through the fading away and cessation, is called one liberated by wisdom. Therein, monks, what is the distinction? What is the disparity? What is the difference between the Tathagata, Arahant, Sammasambuddha, and a monk liberated by wisdom? And stop here for a moment. This is also one important sutta. So the Buddha is saying that a Buddha is liberated because of revulsion, revulsion of the 5 aggregates, and he does not cling to the 5 aggregates. And the disciple, the Arahant disciple, it becomes liberated in the same way by understanding the aggregates and then becoming disenchanted with the aggregates, seeing revulsion, and then stop clinging to them, and then he also becomes liberated. So here the Buddha is saying, what's the difference between the Buddha and his disciple liberated? You see, during the Buddha's time, the Buddha is called the Arahant, Tathagata, Sammasambuddha. The monk disciples are not called Arahants, The monk disciples are called monk liberated by wisdom, or a monk liberated by mind, or a monk liberated both ways. Both ways means liberated by wisdom as well as liberated by mind. So the Buddha only is called the Arahant, and then later people don't understand. Then they differentiate between the Buddha and the Arahant and say the Arahant has not finished his work, whereas the Buddha has finished his work. But we find in the Suttas, the Buddha says, after you see the rest of the Sutta, there's practically no difference between the Buddha and the Arahant disciple. And then the disciple said, Venerable Sir, our teachings are rooted in the Blessed One, guided by the Blessed One. Take recourse in the Blessed One. It would be good if the Blessed One would clear up the meaning of this statement. Having heard it from him, the monks will remember it. So here the Buddha is asking them, what's the difference between the teacher, the Buddha, and his disciple liberated by wisdom? And they could not explain, so they asked the Buddha to kindly explain. Then listen and attend closely, monks, I will speak. Yes, Venerable Sir, the monks replied. The Blessed One said, the Tathagata monks, Arahant Sammasambuddha, is the originator of the path, unarisen before, the producer of the path, unproduced before, the declarer of the path, undeclared before. He is the knower of the path, the discoverer of the path, the one skilled in the path, and his disciples now dwell following that path and become possessed of it afterwards. This, monks, is the distinction, the disparity, the difference between the Tathagata, Arahant, Sammasambuddha, and a monk liberated by wisdom. That's the end of the sutta. So here the Buddha is saying that the Buddha is the one who first discovered the path. The path here means the Noble Eightfold Path. So the Noble Eightfold Path is a path that is practiced by all Buddhas and all Arahants. Anyone who wants to become liberated must practice this Noble Eightfold Path. This is the one and only way for liberation. Nowadays, people confuse learners by saying there are 84,000 Dhamma doors. The Buddha never mentioned even once that there are 84,000 Dhamma doors. The Buddha always says there's only one path to Nibbana, one path to liberation, only one and no other path, and that is the Noble Eightfold Path. So here the Buddha says that he is the one who has rediscovered the Noble Eightfold Path. He is the first to bring it back to this world. Okay, and he's very familiar with the path. He teaches the path. And he teaches his disciples the same path, and his disciples also follow him, practicing the same path. In other words, the path that the Buddha walks and his Arahant disciple walks is no different at all. It's just that the Buddha is the first Arahant, and the others are later Arahants. So the Buddha said that is the only distinction, the difference between Arahant, the Buddha, and his disciples are liberated by wisdom. So you see here, in the Buddha's own words, he says actually there's no difference between him and his disciples. Only he is the first Arahant, and they are later Arahants. Well, nowadays people don't understand. They make such a big distinction between the Buddha and the Arahant disciples, and they come up with a lot of things that the Buddha never said before. All that rubbish which the Buddha said is not found in the original suttas. Those are the words of disciples. Things like paramis, that the Buddha cultivated paramis for such a long time. 4 asankya kappas and 100 mahakappas. When you look into the suttas,